Well, good evening. My name is Lisa Matich. I'm the director of the Academic Support Center. And tonight we're going to talk about managing our to-do lists. I don't know if you guys are like me, but I have a habit of making a lot of lists and putting them in different places and then forgetting where those lists are. And they randomly show up. And then it's like, wow, I might as well not have even made the to-do list. So I think 2024 will be the year that we are going to get these to-do lists under control. And hopefully we will be ready to use them to our advantage, both academically and socially, and getting our priorities straight and getting our goals accomplished. So let's talk a little bit about to-do lists and what it means to have them and why we should use those to-do lists. So in particular, a lot of what we need to talk about in regards to to-do lists really comes down to how good are you at self-discipline. So you can make a to-do list all you want, but are you actively engaging with it? Are you actually doing something with it? Is that to-do list actually effective for you? So if you're struggling to get motivated to do all the work you need to do in college and in life, perhaps we should work on our self-discipline in 2024. So what exactly is self-discipline? Because it's kind of a weird term. A lot of us know what discipline is, and sometimes self-discipline makes it sound like we're not supposed to eat all the ice cream in the ice cream container in the freezer. But really, it's about learning to lean into resistance, taking action even though you don't want to, even though you don't feel like it. It's this idea of moving forward, constantly moving forward. And so Dr. Davis here says that self-discipline is about leaning into resistance, taking action in spite of how you feel, living your life by design and not default. That idea that you choose the path that you're walking on, you're not just making decisions after the fact because you don't have any plans moving forward. And he says at the end, but most importantly, it's acting in accordance with your thoughts and not your feelings. So this idea of managing our to-do list really comes down to three main points. It's going to help us with our organization of our life, organization of the things that we need to accomplish. It's going to help us with our motivation. The idea that just because you create a to-do list, the fact that you actually mark things off a to-do list will increase your motivation. And we know from the research that once we start moving, we keep moving. It goes all the way back to that physics stuff you learned in high school about a force in motion stays in motion. That's really kind of what we're talking about here. So if you have a to-do list and you start making progress towards your goals and crossing things off your to-do list, you'll be motivated to keep going and moving forward. And the last bit about to-do lists really do help us with time management. It allows us to see what do we actually have to accomplish in the amount of time that we need to accomplish it. Oftentimes people write to-do lists and they're really big items, but it might actually be better to take that to-do list and make it much smaller and break those projects up into smaller pieces and then accomplish each one of those pieces along the way. Again, that'll make you keep moving forward. It'll help with your organization, and you'll be able to do these littler tasks in the amount of time that you have. So let's take a look at making a to-do list. How do we do that? I don't know about you guys, but my to-do lists oftentimes are actually on my phone. I ended up getting an app on my phone that's called Quick Notes, and I use it because it actually looks like a Post-it note that's been put or placed on my phone that reminds me of things that I need to get done. And so I realize if I don't put them on that list, I'm not looking at it all the time. So if I put it on that list, it's on my phone, it's there, can move forward. So before we even figure out what's the best way to do a to-do list for you, you really need to think about what do you have to do? And so you're really going to sit down and create an inventory. Think about everything that you have to do. Doesn't matter if it's for schoolwork, if it's for work, if it's for home, making a list and getting all of that stuff down on there. There's a reason why we do that. So writing it all down, first off, helps you remember to do those things. That's the key part, right? How often do we think we should do something, but we don't remember that we need to do it because we didn't make a note to do it. So an inventory lets us put all those things down. So I made kind of just a little list here about what are some of the things that could be happening right this week, putting it all down on that list. And nobody cares. There's no grading going on your to-do list. Nobody's standing over your shoulder saying, don't do that. That's awful. Then don't write that down. You're going to be unorganized and messy because a list of to-do items is just that, a list. It's almost like brainstorming, right? And the purpose is that we're freeing up space in your brain for the things that are important. So instead of having a bunch of tabs open in your brain, like do this, then do this, then do this, we can close all those tabs, put them on one in, or I should say, put them in one location. And then we can close all those tabs in our brain and focus on one thing at a time. So an inventory is a really good first step to creating your to-do list. All right, so we've put everything down, right? Now we need to look at that list and say, okay, we got to get this list organized because it's not going to be enough to just put everything down on a list. How do you know what you need to do first, or what's really important, or what has some sort of time consequence to it? So I always kind of talk about the idea of categorizing your to-do list. Let's put them into 4 different categories. The first one being urgent, things that have to be done right now or should have been done yesterday. That's always a tough one, right? How many times have we said to ourselves, oh, I should have done that yesterday? Second part is the second category is important. It needs to be done, but doesn't need to be done right this second, okay? The third one is need. It needs to be done eventually. I have to get to it. But again, the time frame in which to get it done is a little more flexible. I may have a lot more time. And the fourth category is want. What do you want to do on your to-do list? What is something that's really just beneficial to you and probably not to anybody else? You don't have to worry about the wants. These are things that are kind of like maybe later on goals or things that you would like to get to if you have time. That's what goes on the want list. So you want to do it, but it can wait. It's not something that is urgent or important or needs to get done right away. And some people even go one step further and look at those categories. So inside the urgent category, which one is the top priority? And so they even subdivide it even more in terms of organization. And that's up to you if you want to do that. But my suggestion, inventory, writing it all down. Second part, categorizing it. Let's put these into some order of importance so you know what has to get done in what order. All right, the next little tip I'm going to point out is this idea of using actionable verbs. So what I mean by this is don't just put something on the list that you're not sure about. So even going back just for a second here where it says eye doctor appointment, what does that mean? Does that mean I have to make the appointment? Does that mean I have to go to the appointment? Does that mean I have to look up the insurance for that appointment? What does that mean? So instead of just putting some basic things down on your to-do list, try to be a little bit more intentional on what verbs need to go in front. So for the example I've got here is car insurance. So if you put car insurance on your to-do list, it's really less motivating and it's definitely less clear. So what do you need to do with the car insurance? Do you have to renew it? Do you have to pay the bill? Do you got to print it out and stick it in your car? Or is it like this case that I wrote down? I just need to get the car insurance policy number. I'm not sure why in this example, but in this case, I just need the policy number. So giving myself a very specific task, I am more likely to do it. And then I can figure out where it goes in that list that we were talking about in terms of priority, right? Do I need it because I got a traffic ticket and then I got a secondary ticket because I didn't have my car insurance? Yeah, that's going to be a little bit more important than, oh, eventually I need to get to that and put it in the car. So depends on the importance. So using actionable verbs will help you get organized and tell you in terms of what degree things need to be done in. So even laundry, what do we have to do there? Do we have to separate the whites and the darks? Meh. I'm not a big fan of that, just throw it all together. But anyway, maybe you just need to get the dirty clothes into the washer. Maybe they've already been washed. They need to be moved to the dryer. Do they need to be hung up? Does something need to be ironed? Nobody wants to do that, but maybe something needs to be ironed. So instead of just saying laundry, be a little bit more specific, because put dirty clothes in washer and then put clothes in dryer and then fold clothes and put clothes away could technically be 4 different things on your to-do list. But doesn't it make you feel good to cross those suckers off when you're done? That's kind of the whole point, right? And even when we talk about studying, if you just put on their study guide, well, that's great, but what does that mean? And do I have to create it, or is it located somewhere? Or how long is this going to take? If you don't give yourself actionable verbs, you have no idea how much time you are going to need to accomplish that particular task. And the idea of a good to-do list is it's going to motivate you to keep moving forward, right? So how do we move forward? We have an actionable verb that tells us something. We can then do it. And then we know how much time it's going to take us to do that. So we can go on to the next task, right? Moving forward. I laugh at this laundry one because I don't know about anybody else here, but I oftentimes do laundry with the idea that, as I'm watching my favorite TV shows. So when it gets to the first commercial, well, then I'm going to go separate whites and darks, right? And then when I get to if I'm watching football, then we get to halftime, then I know that's a good time I can fold laundry, right? Because I've got a good 15 minutes or so to fold laundry, right? So if you know what you need specifically to do, then you can book your time around those things. So I mentioned earlier about that idea of breaking down tasks. It oftentimes is hard to really understand what's involved on a to-do list, an item on a to-do list, if you don't know exactly what you have to do. So I was an English major, and oftentimes on my to-do list would be the following: write essay. That's great. Unfortunately, all of my classes were write essay, right? If you're an English major, there's very few classes where you actually did something but write an essay. But the thing is that writing an essay, if you think about it, is really kind of like 39 much smaller steps, right? So instead of just saying write essay, which nobody just sits down and starts writing, it doesn't work that way. It shouldn't work that way. And if that's a problem that you have, come see us in the Writing Center. But you never want to just say write essay and think that it's going to magically get accomplished in the amount of time you've set aside for it. Instead, think about breaking down that task into more manageable pieces and pieces that can kind of be lumped together. So I've got a few here: brainstorming some topics, outline your argument, find 3 sources, or draft, the first body paragraph or the second body paragraph or the conclusion or the introduction, or write your thesis statement. Take that write essay and break it into smaller chunks. And they can be really tiny, such as open up Word document and put name on top. You've started your essay. Nobody's going to tell you any different. That's the first step. And sometimes just opening that Word document and putting your name on it is going to be that little bit of motivation that gets you then to say, oh, you know what, while I'm here, let me brainstorm some topics. Okay, so the idea of this to-do list and breaking it down, the smaller tasks will motivate you to do more and more of those smaller tasks. And soon enough, that write essay will actually have been completed. So breaking down tasks into manageable and understandable parts. So the only thing I wanted to point out here in particular, this idea of find 3 sources, that sometimes can sound like a really, oh, that's just, 3 words. That shouldn't take me too long to do. We find out the hard way that something like find 3 sources might actually be the longest part of what you're trying to do, because you may find one good source, but then you're struggling to find more, or you found a source or you haven't found any, and now you need to make an appointment with the librarian to help you do that. So think through those different parts, because some may just take longer than others, even if we're breaking down a much larger task. All right, so how do we start figuring out our to-do lists and how they fit into our life? So one of the things that we suggest at the Academic Support Center is to really look at your schedule as a visual. And so what I mean by that is really take the week, a full week, and determine where are you at? What are you doing in the hours between, well, this says 6 a.m., bless them, I'm not getting up that early, 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. By the way, I'm in bed at 9. So there's a certain part of the day. So figure out the day that works for you. When I was in college, I had a 7:30 a.m. math class. I would not suggest. But then I had a class that went till 9:30 at night because it was a upper level English class. So And in between, I had marching band. So I had a really long day. And so figuring out where you are, when you are throughout the day will help you see where you have blocks of time. Because if you think about it, oh, look, for example, look at that Monday schedule. You go from 9 a.m. till noon, and then you have a meeting. And then by 2 o'clock, we all kind of feel sleepy, right? That's that time of the day where we all kind of want a nap, right? There's nothing wrong, by the way, by sneaking in a nap in some of those places. But we always think tomorrow I'll have more time. And what we find out is that we don't. But if we look at our week in this kind of schedule, now all of a sudden there are gaps that open up. So yeah, I get up for a class at 9 a.m. on Monday, but 9 o'clock on Tuesdays, I actually don't have anything going on. So maybe that's the time where I can put in one of those tasks off my to-do list and get it taken care of. So maybe I don't arrive on campus, I don't need to be there till 10 o'clock on Tuesday. So maybe Tuesday mornings are when I run to the dry cleaner, or I go pick up medication for my dog from the vet. I mean, this may be a time period where you can get certain things done because now you see you have this open amount of white space in your schedule. So this is flexible. Everybody's schedule will look different. If you are an athlete or a two-sport athlete, this is going to be pretty filled. But there's a lot of other things on this schedule that aren't in there. And I want you to think too about times that you like to spend with your friends, times that you may go to worship, times that you visit or talk with family. All those kind of things really should be at some level kind of scheduled into your life too. So your busy week schedule will probably be pretty full, but there are still gaps in time that you can use to take advantage to knock things off that to-do list. So let's talk a little bit more about managing your to-do list itself. So once we've gotten one written out, we've used some action verbs, we've inventoried so we know what kind of order things should be in, we've blocked out our schedule. Now what? How do we take that to-do list and make it something that we're going to do? So my suggestion is think about short, simple, and easy. Start off something small. Again, motivation, right? You do something, you're going to feel better and you're going to want to do something next. But even once you complete the first part of a step, what's the next step? Where we go from here? You're going to want to create reminders of your goals, what you're trying to accomplish, and put them where you can see them every day. So whether that's an app on your phone that when you open your phone, or even the home screen, but the home screen itself, that's a great place to stick things that you want to see every day. You can use an app so that pops up for you. A lot of people even in their daily planners, because that's somewhere they can see. But if there are certain goals and things you want to accomplish each day, I know a lot of people who have whiteboards. I have one in my office even that has all the different months and what things need to be accomplished each month so that the Academic Support Center keeps chugging along and doing what it needs to do. But then I have a personal one here that sits on my fridge. So I know where everybody has to be on every day. And then just goals and tasks of the family of what we want to accomplish. And those kind of things, we can see it because we're in that fridge every single day, right? Some other things to keep in mind when you're thinking about your to-do list: know yourself. Are you more productive in the morning? Are you a night owl? Whatever time you're more productive, that's a really good time to schedule your difficult tasks, the things that are larger or more complicated, or things that you really don't want to do. That's what you want to stick in your productive time. The other thing to keep in mind is that it's never really a good time to start a new task. So if you say, well, I'll wait until I have more time, or I'll wait until this is done. If you don't get started, you're really never going to do it. You're going to keep pushing things off. So just start the task, regardless of where you are in your life. You never may feel secure enough to do whatever it is that you want to do or need to do. And at some point, you just have to start. So it's not a perfect time. That's okay. Get started anyway. We know that if you think about your schedule and you create a realistic daily routine for yourself, you're starting a good habit, and that good habit builds on more good habits. So after your professor dismisses you from class and you know that you got about 10 minutes before your next class, those 10 minutes can be, hey, I'm going to just reread my notes from my last class, make sure I understand what those are, circle anything or highlight anything I'm not sure about. And then when you go to your next class, you've reviewed your set of notes and you're ready to think about what you're going to need to do later to study with those notes. Having a good routine not only helps you stay motivated, but it actually tells your body that you're about to do something. So if you are one of those people that I'm going to study now, so the first thing I do to study is I get my computer out, I turn it on. Here it says grab a cup of tea, but I like coffee, so I'll get a cup of coffee, sit down, I'll get my headphones in because it's awfully noisy at my house. And then I know my body says, okay, we're sitting at the table. I'm sitting in my spot. I've got my coffee. I've got my headphones. My computer is open. And now my body knows this is the time that we start. You do this even without thinking about it. How many of you have an evening routine where you're ready for bed? You put on your pajamas, you brush your teeth. Some of us brush our hair, clean up and get ready to go. And your body starts going, I guess we're going to sleep soon. I should start to relax. And your body will actually follow what you're doing if you have a routine. The last thing I kind of wanted to talk about before I go into some easy ways to cross things off your list, I want you to get into the habit of giving yourself some grace. Just because you've made a to-do list, if you don't get everything done, if you didn't get as done as fast as you thought you would, you didn't move on to the next step as quickly as you thought you would, it's okay. The idea is that you learn from why those things happened and then move forward. Move to the next task. Keep pushing yourself forward. Again, motivation, momentum, move forward creates more movement forward. All right, so some just quick things here that you can do to cross off your to-do list. So going back just for a second here, jumping back to that busy schedule, see all those white spaces? What can we do with those white spaces? So even if they're not that big, remember I said some of us can have really packed schedules. If you have 5 minutes, you can do one of these things really quickly and knock it off your to-do list. You can review notes from class. You can update your schedule or your planner. You can look at newspaper headlines. And we say newspaper like anybody actually opens a newspaper anymore. But what I mean is generally digitally, however you get your news, you can skim through the headlines that way. You could make a quick phone call. Hey, that eye doctor appointment, right? Got to make that eye doctor appointment. Or everybody's favorite, exercise. How many sit-ups can you do in 5 minutes? Even stretching. So forget full-on exercising. Can you do a chair meditation for 5 minutes? So you have some things to kind of get off that list, and it can be done really quickly. If you have 10 minutes, you have even more time than you think. You can actually survey a chapter, meaning pre-reading a chapter before you read it. Surveying a chapter, just kind of skimming through what's important, what's this chapter going to talk about. That's going to help you prep for a class. That's going to help you think about your study session later in the evening. A surveying of a chapter doesn't have to take long, but it really, really helps with later when you go back to actually read through that chapter. If you've got flashcards, this is a great 10-minute activity, right? Flipping through those flashcards. You can check your email. Remember, don't forget to check that every day. That should be on all of our to-do lists. You can straighten up your room and take a picture and post about it. Isn't it exciting? You made your bed today. But what I'm saying is, for me, that's a big one. I've got 10 minutes. Okay, I can go and dust, that room and get it knocked off my list. And of course, I'm always a big proponent of going, taking a walk, taking a nap, just kind of closing your eyes for a bit. Meditation's always good. It's important stuff. So if you have 30 minutes, this is a bigger chunk of time than you think. You can actually start your library research. You can start brainstorming or outline a paper. We've got 30-minute appointments with our writing tutors. They'd be happy to sit down with you and brainstorm that next paper. And then it's one and done and off your to-do list, moving on to something else. You can run an errand, right? Like we talked about going to the dry cleaner. And after you have previewed that chapter in 10 minutes, now if you've got a whole 30 minutes, you can read that chapter. So you've got some extra time on your hands. So the other thing I wanted to show you too is that if you're a person who likes paper's a good thing. This is a great website that has free to-do lists. So if you kind of want to have something fun to do, figuring out how those lists can look. So printabletodolist.com has a lot of those that are available. You can download them, you can screenshot them, whatever you like, but at least some of them are pretty cool and kind of you can color even some of them. So depending on what you like, make the to-do list fun. You're more likely to use it if you feel kind of drawn to it or you connect with it. So find something that works for you. Well, we're kind of coming to the end of our little program here. I mentioned it wasn't going to be terribly long, but I wanted to, of course, put up our resources at the Academic Success Center. And you can come and see us. You can make an appointment with an academic coach to talk about things like managing to-do lists, time management in general. We can talk about different ways to study. We can talk about the study cycle, all sorts of good stuff. Make an hour appointment with an academic coach on Academic Support Net through Okta. If you need help doing that, you can text us, or you can even send us an email and one of us will get back to you to talk about how to use those resources. So thank you so much for joining us. I hope you found this helpful, and I'm looking forward to seeing all of you. Thanks so much.